You're live.
All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the September meeting of the Advisory Committee for Racial Equity, Inclusion, and Human Rights. My name is Katie. I am chairing tonight's meeting, and because we have members on Zoom, we will call roll for the record. We have graciously been offered by Raylan to take tonight's notes in the absence of our typical secretary, Leanna Fellis. So thank you, Raylan, for doing that. All right, so let's begin. Gabrielle Wiley, here. Raylan Burke.
Here.
Mark Ross.
Here.
My own notes. And then Katie Robinson.
Here.
And myself are here. We also have with us our chair, or rather our liaison from City Council, Michael Beck. Thank you for being here, Counselor. So we begin each meeting with the general public comment. This is just 15 minutes. Anything that is... this portion of the agenda is for anything that the general public would want to comment on that is not listed on the agenda. We ask that everyone be respectful and thoughtful in their presentation of the comments and try to be as brief as possible. We will limit, like I said before, this public comment section to 15 minutes so we can get through our business, but there may be time afforded at the end of the meeting if others want to speak. If you do wish to speak about any item on the agenda, we just ask that we wait until that point on the committee. Wait until the committee reaches that item on the agenda. So is there anyone this evening here that would like to make public comment? Being none, do we have any folks on Zoom? No? Wonderful, then we'll move forward. Thank you. So I am recommending the approval for the August 26th meeting notes that were presented in the packet. Can I have a motion, please, to approve?
I move that we approve the minutes.
Second. Right. Are there any notes, comments, updates that need to be made? Yes.
I believe in the section on challenges, it was in Jennifer Gunderman's conversation. I think the changes in family planning related to reimbursement, I think it's for Medicaid and not Medicare, if I'm not mistaken.
Thanks for bringing that to our attention, Mark. Courtney, are you familiar?
I will only say that I believe, but I'm not certain, so I'm happy to double check, but I think MaineCare is Maine's version of Medicaid.
Yes.
Yeah.
That'd be correct. You said Medicare.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
It should be either MaineCare or Medicaid.
Yeah, no, yeah, sure.
So can we have an adjustment to those meeting notes made before they are filed?
Oh, sure.
To Medicare from Medicaid, you're saying?
Yes, to change to Medicare, Medicaid.
Yep.
Yeah, they can be approved with that.
All right.
With that change.
Great. Good catch. Thank you. Yeah. All right. So with that in mind, with that change in mind, again, we're going to have to do a roll vote. So Gabrielle. Yes. Katie.
Yes.
Thank you. Raylan.
Yes.
Mark.
Yes.
And Katie Bryden approves. Wonderful. Thank you all. I have too many documents. All right. Now, we are moving on to our event portion of the evening. This is typically where we hold space to talk about the 2026 MLK planning breakfast, which Shane has been our liaison, working directly with the NAACP and the folks that are working to organize that. Shane is not here this evening, unfortunately, so we will put a pin in those that planning. But for those of you that were here last, you know that breakfast is now going to be held in Brewer at Jeff's Catering. And so our committee wants to really evaluate how we can be of service in either presenting ongoing education opportunities or really help to troubleshoot some issues that this breakfast has long come up against, like transportation and making sure that is accessible. Obviously, moving it from the Orono campus at UMO to Brewer will help, but that's just something to keep in mind. So if there are any folks that have specific ideas about education that we can offer, that will be on the table and something that we can put a pin in until next month when Shane is here. Next on the agenda is our policy and ordinance piece. We are going to be speaking tonight specifically about a naming policy referral for John Frawley, and I would like to invite Councillor Trumbull up to sit with us to share a little bit about this naming for the city employee and your thoughts on why the clubhouse should be named after Mr.
Sure,
Frawley.
thanks. Dan Trimble, I'm on the city council, but I'm really not in my role as a council. I was approached by someone about this idea, and Tracy also Parks and Rec is here as well. Tracy Willett, Director of Parks and Rec. But John Frawley was a longtime city engineer. Actually, I think he started with the city in the old city hall that was over on Columbia Street. So, and John's still around. He lives in the area and is a great guy. But he was involved in any major construction or project in the city for probably 50 years. And he was the one with city manager in the mid-60s, asked John to, said we should have a public golf course. And you find, there was some land the city had over on Webster Avenue, but John had to work with the city attorney and some other people to acquire more land so we could build a golf course. And he also helped find the first pro, Austin Kelly. And he designed the clubhouse. And then he also was instrumental in getting the additional land when we added the additional 9 holes to make it a 27-hole course. So he's really been intimately involved in the golf course since its inception. And John's probably, I'd say in his early 90s now. A friend of his approached me and said, do you think, we thought it would be nice if we could have something named after John. And they thought of the golf course, and they thought was his involvement in the city and what he had done for the golf course seemed to me to be appropriate. And so this is actually, when you said that tonight, that's the first time I think it's mentioned publicly. He doesn't know anything about it. I mentioned to his wife, I messaged her and told her what we were going to try to do. She thought it was a great idea. And so this is the first time it's been publicly discussed.
Right. Well, I hope it's not a surprise and that he's not watching, tuning into every city meeting. I'm sorry. Thank you very much for that. And there is additional information, submitted letters on behalf of this in our packet. And this obviously goes back to the naming ordinance that we looked at last year in just being involved in that process of what that would look like. So I'd love to open it up if there are questions that folks have about moving this on to, it will move on, does it move on directly to council or GovOps or GovOps? Okay.
Monday.
On Monday. All right. So are there any questions or thoughts or feedback before we talk about approving this or not to move on to GovOps?
It sounds like he was heavily involved in the creation of the golf course, and since it belongs to the city, it makes sense that it should be named after the person who was heavily involved and the reason why it exists. So, yeah.
I agree. I really appreciate too everything that was shared in either the memos on behalf of this naming recommendation and obviously the news articles that were also included. He obviously had a really big hand in working obviously with the city engineering to ensure, our improvements of environmental waste and making sure.
I haven't seen all the material.
Actually, it is incredibly impressive, not only from obviously, I can only understand so much about engineering, but I do the highlights of his work from just making sure that whatever was developed in Bangor was done with such a thoughtful.
Yeah, I would say he probably did the first sewer separation projects we did.
Yeah.
We really got into those in the late 90s and early 2000s, but he was still with the city, I think, until sometime in the 90s, I would say.
Yeah.
The city.
Yeah, there was some really great pieces in here about
Good guess.
yeah. So just a light Google of him also brings up a lot of accolades in terms of what he was able to not only do from the city, again, from an engineering perspective, but really thoughtfully laying it out so that we are, having some strong improvements to waste and environmental processes. So I really appreciated that. So we will vote now. We vote on this, right? To approve, to move forward, or do we just recommend?
It's recommending, yeah.
Excuse me. Then we will vote to make this recommendation, and again, we'll do a roll call vote. So I'll begin with you, Gab.
Well, first somebody has to make a motion.
Oh my goodness, I am so sorry.
Didn't vote.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, and thank you for reminding me of that. Whew. Now, Gabrielle,
Yes.
Katie,
Yes.
Ray,
Yeah.
Mark,
Yes.
and Katie Bryden is also a yes.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you. Love to hear his reaction. Tell us, you know, get a video or something.
Come to our next meeting.
Yeah. I appreciate that. My gosh, I swallowed something incorrectly. All right, wonderful. Thank you all for that. This was the fastest we've ever moved through an agenda, you guys. I'm so impressed with us. But now we move on to our ongoing discussion of 287G agreements, the process for LD 1971. I'd like to begin by giving a quick update. I think that most of the council is aware, this committee rather, advisory committee, is aware of where we're at with that process. But in our August meeting, we developed a very rough draft of what we wanted to submit to GovOps to recommend that there's some language around our city opting out of 287G agreements. And this would be something that we would have done preemptively. 287G, we've been talking about this since January, has always been on the books. There's never been an expectation that we do not participate, or rather, there's never been an expectation that we would participate in it. However, we've gotten a lot of public comment at these meetings. We've heard from citizens in Bangor that would like to see something that more strongly demonstrates from the city of Bangor no future plan to ever opt into a 287G agreement. So we've put this into writing. Shane and I were at the beginning of September. We were at a meeting with GovOps where we presented what we had put together to the GovOps committee, and we had our city solicitor there also providing feedback. And what came back was that the language was really strong, and really there was concern that it would put us into a space where maybe we wouldn't be able, maybe it would put us at risk for either losing federal funds or becoming a more obvious target. So Shane and I then went and met with Chief Hathaway, as was requested by the GovOps committee, to actually have a meeting with the police chief to get more information about what actually is happening in the city with ICE enforcement and what does that look like. And from that meeting, where also our city solicitor was in attendance along with our city manager, we created a new resolution based on what we had heard from GovOps, what we had heard from individuals that had come from had spoken at public comment based on conversations that we've had here as a group, and we made a new resolve or resolution or language for that, a draft. It was largely based on what Portland, Maine actually passed by their city council on September 15th, the night that Shane and I met with GovOps to recommend this language. Portland, Maine went and created a resolution that didn't go as far as ever naming 287G, but did bring up that they wanted some strong language against the city of Portland ever engaging in activities or collaborating with ICE. And so we made this marriage of those recommendations, our past drafts, feedback that we had collected along the way, and presented it last week via email to our city solicitor, who took the time quickly to provide feedback. The feedback was sent in your packet today, along with the draft that was submitted last week based on those recommendations. And that's as far as we got. That's where we're at now. So we have our city solicitor here, or your title is Assistant City Solicitor, Grace. Our Assistant City Solicitor, our Chief of Police is here. We have a bunch of folks that I would love to invite to the table so that we can have a conversation about what it is that we would like to, how we would like to move forward with this resolution. Do we want to accept the changes that were proposed by the city solicitor? Do you have questions that maybe Shane and I didn't ask, in our meeting last week with everyone here? And how can we move forward with language that both represents our intended goal that we started so many months ago and meets us where we are at now based on the conversations, the feedback, et cetera, et cetera. Did I miss anything?
You, if you don't have hair.
I've been asking Courtney to change the view several times tonight, so I understand your plight.
It is showing your face on the camera. I can see it from here. It's not just the back of your head, so you're good.
Oh, well, that brings us to where we are this evening. So I would love to invite, a conversation because what was presented, and then I guess maybe we should start there, Dave. Would you be interested in sort of walking us through what you read, how that, how you came to that feedback? And then I don't know, Chief Hathaway, if you've had the chance to look at the edits that Dave made.
I did.
Okay,
Yes.
then I would just love, maybe we start with feedback from you and then we can open it up to questions. Does that sound good? All right.
Me first. Me first?
Who would, I mean, I'm trying to determine which would make the most sense to,
Either way is fine.
yeah.
I, of course, looked at the draft and made a number of changes. It looks a lot better if it's not in
Red.
red line. I looked at it in clean markup mode, and it looked very nice. But it looks like there's a lot of it that was removed, and there weren't things that were removed, just willy-nilly. Every piece that was changed, I suggested the change for a specific reason, and it wasn't, and some of it was there were staff other than myself that had the same concerns or different concerns, and so what was the end result was the shorter version that has a different tone, I think.
Yeah.
And I still, unfortunately, I understand your committee has its mission and purposes, and that's respected, but I also have to protect the city, and even with the version that I said is the one that I would recommend the changes for, I still can't recommend that the council pass it because, and some of the stuff I said at the GovOps meeting, there's a well-established legal principle that a legislative body can't bind a future legislative body.
Right.
So the council can't bind future councils from acting. An ordinance can, but a resolve can't. And so it wouldn't. And as you mentioned, there have never been any 287G agreements that the city has entered into, nor are there any prospects for them doing that. No interest in it, and so the resolve wouldn't have any legal effect. And by the way, I changed the name to resolve because the charter says that the city council can only act by ways of ordinance, order, or resolve.
Okay.
They don't mention resolution, which is similar to resolve. But anyway, that's why I changed it to resolve. But so it wouldn't have any legal effect, but my concern is the other thing that I talked about with the GovOps committee, and that was the prospect of spotlighting what would be perceived as intentionally not cooperating with federal authorities, and the reaction that that might provoke, which may involve the airport that the city owns, for, as an example, and the access to the federal funding that the airport relies on and seeks every year, and it's an important part of the airport's activities, and so, but not just the airport, the public health and the community connector. There are federal funds involved there, and so some of the things that were in the drafts, that I had concerns about, that it would evoke a response that wouldn't be something that would be good for the city. And so that's why I can't even recommend the version that I suggested the changes to. But if you were going to present one to the city council, I would say the one with my suggested changes would be the one that I think would have the least the least chance of having a response that would from the federal authorities that would perhaps end up harming the city in economic ways.
Mhm.
So that's kind of those are kind of my thoughts. And if you had any thoughts about any specific provisions, I'd be prepared to talk about those. But that's my position on this, unfortunately.
Well, I had a thought about the inclusion of federal partners in towards the end of it. What does that exactly mean? The federal partners mean does that include ICE? Or does that not include ICE in terms of cooperation with them? But apparently that's sort of academic at this point, because if this is gonna not necessarily be presented as with a recommendation for adoption, then the language really is not even relevant. So my question beyond that is, in the absence of this resolve, what is the position of the Bangor Police Department in terms of ICE activities?
But we're not seeking an agreement. We're not looking for a 287 agreement. In fact, I was surprised about this. I didn't know that this resolve for this this was developed out of this committee. We've never suggested that we were looking to align with a 287G agreement, and we have no desire.
Do you have any other questions?
No.
I have a follow-up question, unless you do.
No, please go.
Along those lines, what if the Bangor Police Department was approached by ICE or some other federal agency and asked to join in on one of those agreements? Would you guys remain on the same position, or
We
would
have
you
working
reconsider?
agreements with the FBI, HSI, the Secret Service, and US Marshals. And
Okay.
those are agreements we've had in place for 15, 20 years.
Right.
We have no desire to participate in a 287G. We're not looking for immigration enforcement authority.
Okay.
Our other agreements are in place for, we have an agreement with HSI. We work very closely with them on child exploitation issue.
Right.
We work with the FBI because they can reach anywhere in the country and beyond. When we investigate homicide, that's very critical to us.
Of course.
Secret Service has got a planetary, and the Marshal Service helped us find bad actors that cross state lines or and traverse across the country. So those agreements are critical to us, and they help us significantly. But this particular conversation, we've not had any discussion with the city manager's office, nor do we plan to with regard to 287G.
But again, if I know you listed all those other federal agencies, but if ICE or Border Patrol were to approach you, would you guys maintain the same stance if they asked you to reconsider?
We have been approached.
You have been approached,
Every
okay,
law enforcement agency in the country has been approached.
okay.
Yes.
Thank you. I I really obviously appreciate the length of time and work that has gone into these conversations. And the work and feedback that you have, right? I guess my question still remains, and this is up to everyone, right? Like I would love to hear feedback from everyone at this table. If we've had so many concerns, right? And we feel that addressing those concerns in a way that are like, hey, here's an extra safeguard for you. Here's a way that you can truly, like, no matter what, there's going to be no surprises. There's going to be no backroom deals. Like, we promise as a city, we are going to protect you. And I have said this since the beginning. I fully believe that there is no expectation that we would enter into a 287G agreement. And I'm very clear on the ways that that would have to happen. If that decision were to be made, it wouldn't be done in a back room with one person, because it can't be done in a vacuum. It has to have a lot of individuals involved with it. But I do feel beholden in some way to the individuals who are scared or who want something more, I guess, substantial, right? And I don't know what that looks like. I don't know how to ensure that people are going to feel like these conversations were actually worth something, because it's like, okay, I came, I shared my fears, this committee heard it, they took it up the ladder, and it resulted in, I personally won't be able to feel good about saying like, oh, well, I asked them and they said no, right? Like, so what can we do? What are our options? I think my first question to that, like, opportunity is to the city solicitor. If we were to create a policy, I mean, would there be more of a leaning of yours to recommend that? I know that you say in its entirety as a resolution, there will be no, recommendation. And I appreciate that, because I also don't want to be wasting everybody's time, right? And say like, okay, we did this resolution. I can't wait for 4 weeks to pass and do it all over again. So if we were to utilize a resolution, like, would there be, or rather a policy instead, that were future binding? Would you be more open to that?
Well, I'd be glad to look at any ideas that you have that would help in that regard. I did want to just point out to Mr. Roth about the change in the language that I was suggesting in the last paragraph.
Yes.
Where it says that the city council, instead of saying city council calls upon state and federal partners to advance policies, it says city council will cooperate with our state and federal authorities to advance policies. But that says advance policies that protect immigrant rights, reduce fear, and preserve public safety, and will continue to engage with community organizations to ensure transparency, accountability, and the promotion of welcoming environment for all who call Bangor home. My intention in making that change was to change the tone of it to a tone of not so much adversarial, but more partnership, but to protect immigrant rights and that sort of thing. It wouldn't be any kind of indication of cooperating with regard to 287G agreements. I was trying to make it more palatable for some who may be seeing it in the future on the federal side, that we could consider them, federal and state partners in that sense. So back to your question though about policies. Like I said, I'd be glad to look at whatever it is that you think that might help in that regard. And a policy would be something that I'm always willing and ready and able to look at that. I don't know what, I don't have it in front of me now, but there's no reason to shut any doors on ideas.
Right. Yeah, I think that was like our hope, right, was to create something that, well, that meant, that addresses concerns and gives some real, trust and support to folks who have been asking for this in a way that obviously doesn't spotlight any, provocation on Bangor's part.
If I may.
Yes.
So, I think, whether it's a resolve, which in this case is a position statement made by the council, they would have to vote on it. Is the sort of the same, like a policy would still go before council and they would end up voting on it. A policy obviously is an attachment, it tends to be longer, it could include things such as the steps should the city wish to enter into the 287G agreement, which might get more at the heart of what the committee's desire is. But in terms of council approval in that process, it's similar in that it would go back to GovOps. And then based on the direction of that committee, would require future council approval either way.
To be clear though, just for my own to make sure that I'm thinking this through correctly, we wouldn't have the same deadline though, right? Because that policy, I hate the word binding because it feels like you're trapped. I don't want to say we would bind future councils with this policy, but that wouldn't be so much of a turnover as this resolution would, right? Like my understanding is a resolve that's a statement that these people at this table are making right now. And then again, next month, we have a whole new group of people at this table and they don't have to agree with that. Whereas whatever the policy is agreed upon by those folks at this meeting, whenever that comes to fruition, would essentially, there would be I feel like I don't want to use language that makes anybody feel trapped in this future. And I don't also want to feel like I'm speaking as though I'm setting a trap. I just want to be clear that it would be different because we wouldn't have to be like, if we want to feel like we got something done, we got to get this done by November 4th, because that policy would last longer, correct?
It would, and for them to change the policy, they would have to go back through the council approval process to update, change, or rescind that policy. So it's just like a resolve, and the solicitor can correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding of that is it is a position statement. In theory, it doesn't bind the future council. There could always be a different resolve that came forward that they voted on. It tends to be more flexible in that way. But a policy would be voted on by the council and would be put in place until further action related to that policy was taken, whether that was to amend it, rescind it, replace it, any of those things.
It follows a process essentially, whereas a resolve is just something we're agreeing upon, but a policy is formal.
Yeah, and typically policies have like a process laid out. So like the police chief kind of mentioned earlier, like the police department would not unilaterally sign a 287G agreement without having a conversation with the city manager as a starting point.
Right, and I feel like that's what maybe we tried to get at with this updated resolve, was try to be like as clear as possible, because I think that those are really important things to note about what that process is, so that everyone knows that there's something on the books, right, that says we as a city believe that every person who lives here is protected and is welcome, and like it's our job to make it as welcoming as possible. I mean, without being incredibly morbid, what if you got hit by a bus tomorrow? Like what? I know. Not like I'm
But what if you resigned? Like something happened and there was.
What if we underfunded the buses so that no one was driving, and I'm kidding. But
Your stock is the city manager's office. Everything starts there. So if the person who took over decided that he or she wanted to participate in this program, would still require a conversation with the city manager's office. I'm fairly certain it would land back here in this committee for public conversation, and then head off to another committee for further public discussion. So it doesn't matter if I'm in this seat or not. There are levels of conversation have to occur before this would ever reach the city council for a final decision.
Okay, thank you for that. Sorry to bring up your desk.
You could have said, what if we won the lottery?
Yes.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. My boss always says that. She's like, sorry about that. Yes, you're right. Would it, you sail out into the sunset on a wonderful fruit. Thank you. Thank you for that.
So this resolve would handicap a future city council if that was not something that the folks on the council at that time wanted to go along with. If the current city council adopted this, it would make it difficult for future city councils if they don't agree with it. Is that accurate?
I wouldn't say
Not exactly.
difficult. They would just have to go back through the process to change or rescind the policy, which is really like a conversation by a council committee, which usually in this case would be government operations, commonly referred to as GovOps. And then it would go to a council meeting, just one for like approval or not, depending. So it creates an extra layer of steps, if you will, if they wanted to pivot away from whatever that policy says. But it's a two-step process because it would go back to the GovOps committee and then to council if that's the direction that the council as a whole decided to go in.
But only if it's a policy.
Right. Yeah, resolutions, I mean, or resolves, if you will, again, are a position statement of the council. And historically, at least from my perspective, I've seen a number of those go through, and it more often than not, it is something that staff will take to heart in terms of the sort of direction that they give the staff. But certainly, like, the council could pivot away from that position statement at any point if they so chose.
Mm-hmm. Counselor Beck, do you have any thoughts as a?
Well, I just careful what I say because you're the advising committee to council. But I just want to make sure I'm understanding what it comes down to is, do you do a resolve that is basically a nice statement, kind of like we did our welcoming and inclusive statement, which no enforcement to it, but it tells the city, hey, we care about these things. Mm-hmm. Or are you talking about a council order, which would do a legislative policy directive, which the city manager would have to keep on file, and it's there until council rescinds it. So really, to me, it comes down to what your goal is. I mean, if it's make people feel better with words, then put the result forward and what happens, happens. And if it's you wanted something that was actually enforceable, then you would recommend the order, and what happens, happens. I can't say what council will do with it.
Should we maybe do a vote as a committee, what direction we want to go in? I'm leaning toward policy personally.
Not the same concerns in regards to policy.
Are we talking about a policy with the same language, or are we talking about a policy that sets forth the procedures that would be followed if certain agreements, because there already is a procedure that is followed, but if a policy is a statement that expresses the procedures that are already in place, I mean, that might be one thing. I'm sounding like a lawyer now.
Okay.
But if you had the same language, for example, that was in the first draft, I would have the same concerns.
Yeah.
And in fact, a policy actually does have, the council would be, and the city would be bound to follow a policy until it's rescinded or changed. But there'd be no legal effect with regard to the resolve, in my opinion.
Are folks, before we actually make any sort of motion, I mean, are there feelings one way or another that you are concerns, questions about?
One of the things that I'm thinking about when we talk about obviously, I understand you guys have a process, and it sounds like it's a good process. But what about ways of improving that process to allow for further public transparency? Because I know that if I lived in Bangor, which I don't anymore, but if I still did and I heard that, after the fact, like let's say hypothetically Bangor PD did decide to enter into one of those agreements, I would have wanted to have known about it ahead of time. I would want my neighbors to know about it ahead of time, and I'd want the people I care about to know. So what about changing the process so that there is a public awareness and maybe an ability for public comment before any sort of decision were agreed upon? Would that maybe be something that would be agreeable and something that would be safe and it would allow for the public to speak about it, to be involved and feel like they have a say into what sort of direction our city police went into?
But isn't that the process now?
Is it?
Yeah.
So there would be a public comment period?
For this particular issue we're discussing?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's good. I'm
Yeah.
glad to hear that.
Me
But-
too, as a member of the public. When are we gonna open public comment on this?
Forgive me, yes, thank you very much for bringing that to my attention. Yes, please share your feedback.
My name's Justin Cartier, a resident here in Bangor. I'm disappointed to hear this committee talking about how they can further future. And why would we want to tie the hands of our men and women, the Bangor Police Department? Our city solicitor has spoken very eloquently about some of the concerns he has about the language of this, the ramifications of a policy or resolve or any of these, it could hurt the city. If we do damage to Bangor International Airport, the ripple effects of that is going to be felt to the very core of our city. We see a lot of things crumbling all around us, and something like this could be a final blow that brings our city to the ground. I don't know how this advisory committee feels that they have the ability to dictate policy and do anything other than advise the council. It's very disappointing to sit and listen to this, and I hope you take some time to rethink what you're suggesting here. Because what happens when we do have one of the children of the city of Bangor, that one of the children that disappears, and we need help from one of those, the FBI or one of the other government agencies, and we've had a resolve like this that we're not going to cooperate with this agency, which today is ICE. Why don't we pick the IRS? I mean, why not? Why are we even for a moment trying to suggest that we don't cooperate with any government agency? You're not talking about making policy changes and changing the laws. You're talking about dictating that we are not going to cooperate with government agencies. And that kind of lawlessness is not what the city needs. We need cooperation with all of our agencies. And even if we don't agree with the current policies, maybe we should try to make some change around that and not try to hinder the people who are elected to serve the communities. And I appreciate the work you do on this committee. It's, as a volunteer for the city, I think it's important for our whole process. But I think you're going in the wrong direction. And I hope you take some time to think about this. And it's not just about the immigrants that we're trying to save, but what about the people on our police force? The ramifications for them. I hope you think seriously about this before you push forward with this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Stop. Where we are at currently is determining, the best way to move forward with this. And I do think that, again, I very much appreciate all the work that the city solicitor has put into looking at this resolve. And working to make it so that we can support every single person that lives in Bangor to feel safe, and to feel like they belong here. I guess the biggest thing that I'm hearing from you, from the questions, from the feedback, from everything that has been shared from the both of you is that like the people that we have heard from specifically about asking this 287G agreement to be spoken about and, publicly asked not to participate in is because they do not understand the process. And for me, and I don't think that it's a hard to understand. I just don't think that there's enough information about it. So is a resolve that I just wish, I would love to love a solution for there to be a way that we can ensure that everyone who has been afraid, who has had fear, who has wanted to know what this feedback would look like, gets this in a way that is the most, I guess, that the most people can hear about it and know what's happening, right? Like, if no one's watching, I got a handful of folks in this here that understand that this is what we're working on and this is what we want to have happen, and that, we have individuals in leadership who agree that what we are doing actually will, in its full effect, go through a process that will ensure that nobody that we never enter into a 287G agreement without it being a very wide, open conversation. So is that, I don't know, I just feel like I appreciate this resolve, but I don't, honestly, I did accept all the changes and it does look much better. It doesn't quite say what I think that folks, maybe it does. Maybe we just need, the council seeks to make clear that city staff, law enforcement, and the public, Bangor city policies and procedures prevent the city from entering into immigration enforcement agreements or partnerships with federal authorities without an open process and multiple layers of review, thereby protecting civil rights and maintaining community trust. I mean, is that it? Does that meet our goal?
I think for the sake of perhaps making people feel more comfortable with this, could we specify what the process is on this resolve? Is that something that we could maybe do? So anybody reviewing this, like for example, let's say the BDN looks at this and is like, okay, this is what it says. I understand the reason why the language is the way that it is, and it is for layers of protection. But if you have a set process, would it be a bad thing to publicize what that process is so people are aware of it? And so they maybe feel like, if this were to happen, this is what it would look like. Whereas right now it says multiple layers of review. As a public citizen, I wouldn't really know what that means. I wouldn't know that it would mean it would come to us. I wouldn't know that it would mean going through the government ops committee. I wouldn't know that it would mean going through the city manager and then a public comment period. That's a lot of steps. And I think maybe having that information in this would be worthwhile for the public, and it might add an extra layer of security for people.
I would, I guess, suggest that if you want to take back that draft and work on revising it, then,
I'm sorry to interject. We don't quite have time for that because this is coming back to GovOps on Monday. So I think if that's the intent, is that there be an additional whereas, if you will, for language that kind of spells out specifically what staff believe the steps should or would be in line with this conversation. I would say I would feel comfortable that we could probably drop something that clarified that language so that council can consider it as part of their GovOps meeting on Monday. And then, of course, there's nothing stopping this committee from revisiting this subject down the road if you guys chose to take it a step further or make an additional or different recommendation or anything like that. But because you guys already made a formal recommendation, it went to GovOps, they kicked it back to you guys with the understanding that it would come back on Monday the 6th and then likely be on council for approval, because we always try to wrap up to the extent we can within each council year, because with elections, there's always turnover and then you're kind of like bringing people up to speed and things. But again, there's nothing stopping you guys from revisiting this in the future for whatever reason. So.
I guess my question, go ahead.
I haven't mentioned, I mean, if there's some reason why this has to go to GovOps on Monday, I don't think that this is the right time to be making sort of bold assertions in this regard. And so, as I said earlier, I wouldn't be able to recommend this draft to the city council at this time. And if it goes to GovOps on Monday, I won't be here Monday. So Grace will be here Monday for GovOps. And Grace can, make her own recommendations.
Grace, link choice.
So, but my point is, if it's set in stone that it has to go in front of GovOps on Monday, then it's not gonna be something that, if I were gonna be here, that I would recommend. And I'm saying that tonight, that I don't recommend it, but if it has to go to GovOps Monday, the version that I think has the least chance of evoking a negative response is the one that you now have. And as far as changing that further, we would have to look at whatever the changes are. But my thought is that now is not a good time.
I think that we have to be pragmatic as well. The current political climate is not a good one. I'm aware that we have to be very careful about what we say and what we put into place. So my question is, in what form would something like what we're moving towards be the best way to express what our thinking is? A proclamation, a resolve, the policy. I'm not sure where are we headed in terms of the appropriate way to go through this.
I wonder if coming back to GovOps on Monday is that, just letting the council know, or the committee know, that this committee has kind of revisited this topic and tossed around the idea of, is a resolve most appropriate, is a policy, and there could always be like direction from the Government Operations Committee in terms of the council, which direction they might like to go. So they might decide to kick it back for more review, and they don't mind that it crosses council years and things of that nature. I could also go back on Monday and say that the committee wants more time to dig into this before coming back with an updated resolve. I do think I need the touch point at GovOps on Monday, just so it's not hanging out there. But I think this can go whatever direction, I guess, the committee decides is what you guys would like to see, because at the end of the day, what you're doing is making a recommendation to council in terms of action, and then the council gets to chew that over and decide, yes, we want to take that recommendation, or we'd actually rather it look like this, or all of those things. All of that occurs before they actually take the vote on whatever it is that's before them. So I certainly don't want to rush anybody in terms of like this process. I think it can, regardless. So I think there needs to be some sort of update or touch point with GovOps on Monday. But that can look like a number of different things.
I feel like, while I recognize it's obviously a very tenuous time, and it doesn't feel like the right time, to me, not doing something now feels even worse honestly. Instead of taking action now when we've been asked, I mean, for multiple months now. And I do feel like we've had time to really talk about what this could look like. Granted, we're just looking at it on paper for these past 2 meetings, but we've talked about it for multiple months in terms of like what we've been hearing, folks that have asked, what does this look like? How do we address it? This was back when we thought that the legislator was going to take care of it. We never even have to talk about it, right? But the fact of the matter is that things are moving quickly, and it makes me unsettled to feel like, I just feel like I have great privilege of saying like, well, I got time, I don't have to worry about it. That feels wrong to do in this position when we've been asked, and it feels privileged to make that decision. And I think that it would be best to at least address with council in some way. I don't also want to say to council, like, we think that this is what's going to happen, or we think that, you know, we know at the end of the day, it's up to council. And making some sort of recommendation and not just like coming in and out. You know what I mean? Like, let's finish what we started. I like the idea of revisiting it in the future, but in terms of resolve, like what we have now, while I recognize the city solicitor doesn't recommend this, if we were to add a single whereas that outlined the process of, you know, I don't know. I understand what you're saying in terms of wanting the multiple layers to be established, but to say like, maybe we just say, you know, whereas if things were to change in the future, it would have to still go through these committees and these councils and this, you know, city manager. We are resolved that we're going to do what's best for the city of Bangor. We'll cooperate with partners. We'll preserve public safety. And we will make sure that there is a welcoming environment for all who call Bangor home. I feel like, even though I think we could talk about what we all want, how to make it perfect forever, that is probably as close to an agreement between, you know, my recommendations, but your updates, and what we have been working towards and wanting to present. And then we could bring that to GovOps to see, like, we also heard from them, they had very much in line views of like, this is too much, this puts us at risk. And again, I don't want to keep going back and wasting time if people feel like it's too much. But if we've taken it down this much and it's really just right now like an outline of procedures, is that right? Is that enough? Can we talk about that? At least, you know, for this month. Is that something that we can do? That would be that's how I would move forward if I lived in a vacuum. I do see that we have Hillary Simmons. I do want this to be an open conversation, so we'll allow this on Zoom feedback.
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Now, so I appreciate what you're saying and what you're trying to do, but we also have to remember that ICE exists for a purpose. Its role is to enforce immigration laws, to investigate criminal activity that crosses U.S. borders, and to protect communities from threats such as human trafficking, drug smuggling, and organized crime. So these things seriously affect families within the city of Bangor, the community and all, the overall safety of our country. So we have to remember that America is built on a foundation of law and order. So respecting institutions, even when we push for reform, it ensures stability. By working within the system rather than fighting against it, we can achieve meaningful change without weakening national security or public safety. So we have to encompass, we're talking, and I'm sitting here listening to you guys tonight, and I feel like it's one-sided group within the local community. The community of Bangor has a whole bunch of different cultures, race, I mean, everything, but we're encompassing you're talking about one selective group. We need to encompass the whole city of Bangor if we're going to look at things. So I am very disappointed as far as you being an advisory committee and picking one group of citizens and not representing all of the citizens of Bangor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, and I do appreciate that, you know, I understand that Homeland Security obviously manages a lot of the issues that Ms. Simmons brought up, that we are still saying that we will cooperate as terms of our federal partners. So I think that based on the feedback that we've gotten and the recommendations is as all encompassing as possible. We've had a lot of conversation tonight. I think that we have to make a decision. I do really appreciate both of you being here for so long and giving your feedback and answering questions. It's really, really so kind. And thank you, Grace, too, for being here. I really appreciate it. So I would like to, I think the problem is understanding, you know, what to vote on in terms of our next step, right? Is it that we want to, I guess, would it be, and Courtney, I look to you for a recommendation here, would it make the most sense to say that we would like to take a vote on whether or not to make small changes, accept these, the changes that have been presented to us by the city solicitor, add one whereas where the procedure is outlined and bring that back to GovOps on the 6th so that they can make a decision. Because in our true advisory nature, we absolutely understand we're not making decisions for the city, but we do have to present as best we can a really wide lens and a really big scope of all citizens. So we'll leave that up to the city at least to bring to GovOps and hear that feedback. So do we make the recommendation to say, let's accept these changes. Let's add in one whereas that outlines the procedure?
Yes, I would recommend that as part of the motion.
Or we revisit this at a future time? Well, I guess we can't vote on two things.
Yeah, you didn't have voting on the other.
Yeah. Okay, so, please do, Mark,
Before we
yes.
discuss that, I just want to raise a question, because I'm a little bit confused at this point. What would you, since you had said that you would not recommend adoption of the resolve, what would you think would be the best way for us to move forward with this? I don't want to put you on the spot, but I want to get some input.
It's a tough question to answer for you. But I mean, as far as acting right now, I mean, I would have to say my recommendation would be to do nothing right now.
Mm-hmm.
For a number of reasons. And going forward, if there is something that would be worked on, that would be some sort of alternative, I would be glad to look at it, but I don't know that I can answer the question of this is the best way for you to go, because I don't think right now is a good time to go.
On that note, though, with the way things are currently, it could be argued that no time will ever be a good time to go. So if that's the case, like I understand the concerns of what you said, and also of what Hillary said in regards of we are not talking about everybody in Bangor.
Mm-hmm.
The purpose of our committee is to represent minority groups in Bangor and people who do feel unsafe by things that are happening, even if it is unrelated to the Bangor Police Department, and you guys have not been involved, and we appreciate that. Like, the community is thankful, but we are seeing it across the country, and we are still seeing people disappearing. It's not the IRS that is disappearing people. ICE is disappearing people. There's 1,200 people missing from Alligator Alcatraz. We don't know where they are. And those people have families. They have children, they have coworkers, they have bosses, they have important jobs that they've held in this country. and nobody knows where they are. And so it is our responsibility on this committee to try to be a voice for these people, because that's why we're here. And we have to do something. I understand about the concerns about funding for the city, because you're right, our infrastructure is crumbling. We need help. But if we sit by and we don't do anything, and the federal government comes back and they say, we're cutting your funding, that is the federal government cutting our funding. That is not us. So it's our responsibility as people. We have to look out for each other. We have to look out for our neighbors, and we have to look out for the people who can't look out for themselves right now. So knowing all of that, is there anything that we can do that you would agree with?
I don't know the answer to that question. It's hard to say, is there anything you could do that I would agree with? What is it that you want to do? I mean, do you have to determine that?
Yeah, yeah, and I do, for the purpose of time, Mr. Cartier, I do want to just take the votes, because at the end of the day, it's GovOps who's gonna have to look through this and make a decision.
I understand that. I wanted to almost defend the city solicitor who's being badgered to this point. How many times do you have to ask him the same question and make him uncomfortable? I will.
Thank you. All right, so with that being said, I would like to move forward with a vote if I can have a motion that, and again, you can decide now whether or not you think that moving forward with, this resolve with the city solicitor's recommendations and one more piece about procedure should go to GovOps on Monday. Yes means we will accept these changes, put in one more piece, bring it to GovOps and have this conversation with them. And really at the end of the day, again, it's going to be their decision as to what to do with that, either kick it back for more conversation. But I do think we need to bring it to the folks who are going to make the decision. Or not. And then we can revisit that at another time as well as a group. There's plenty of opportunities.
Katie, I just wanted to, if you're calling for a motion and you mentioned the city solicitor's recommendation, I wasn't sure what you meant exactly by.
I'm sorry, the recommended changes.
Okay.
I keep pointing at my computer. I
Okay.
apologize. You can't.
Not
see
my
this.
overall recommendation. Recommended
I
change.
promise, solicitor, that we will not in any way, when you're not here on Monday, I will not say that you recommend this, I promise.
That's what you were saying. The process should be to go back to government ops.
Yes.
Is everyone clear on the vote?
Yes.
Okay, then we will take a roll vote.
Sorry, who made the
Oh my
motion?
gosh, I keep forgetting. I am so sorry. I
Motion to
apologize.
vote
Thank you
on
very
the
much.
the resolve.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Moving forward, Gabrielle,
I vote to move forward on the resolve.
Katie.
I actually do not.
Okay, thank you. Ray?
I do.
Mark?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, and I am a yes vote. So we will make these changes and then we can bring these to GovOps on Monday. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it. I know this
Am I
was-
allowed to explain my vote?
Yeah, of course. I didn't know if you wanted to or not.
I didn't know what the
apologize.
rules were. No, I just think that there's been so much talked about tonight and so much, as I do hear all sides to this, I just personally would have liked more time to dive into the nitty-gritty of every single word of this document, especially in the first line where it says regardless of immigration status. And there was a couple other sentences where I do agree may have been a little strong. But Gabrielle, what you said was beautiful, and I agree with you, and I would love to see something pushed forward. I'm just not sure that this is ready at this time, so that's why I said no.
Great. Thank you so much, Katie. I appreciate that. All right. Thank you all very much. I again really appreciate your time and staying so late with us this evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate it. Something was better than. I agree. This would be more time with these.
We've had this for
But
a while.
we have.
We've been looking at this
We
for a
have.
long time. So,
Very mixed feelings. I think it's important to express what we have done in the resolve. But the other side of it is that, we're in a very, dangerous time. And we've seen throughout the country how, and within our state alone, the repercussions of challenging. I think the point about, Bangor International Airport is very well taken. That's
Absolutely.
certainly not out of the realm of possibility, based on what we've observed the last number of months. So I just want to express that I have very mixed feelings about it.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that. And I think that this is the work, right? This is the work of really evaluating what it is that our committee, has decided to take on, and the decisions and direction that we wish to move forward. And at the end of the day, this is a recommendation to GovOps, and they have on September 15th when they met with them,
Right.
They were given all of this information as well. And so I'm sure that there will be a lot more, they have a lot more information and details on that as well. So there's, I guess, some peace in knowing that this is a very group decision, in terms of making sure that every voice is represented.
I think transparency will go a long way.
All right, let's move on. Thank you all. Again, something that has been on our agenda for a very long time is looking at this language access statement and interpretation assistance. This is something that, my goodness, Councilor Beck brought to our committee in January, I want to say, this winter, after visiting Councilor Beck, if you wouldn't mind sharing with us your, I believe you brought it back from Chapel Hill, North Carolina, a recommendation of how their agenda was presented in terms of access for all folks, and then sort of give us an opportunity to talk about what that language access and physical access might look like on our own agendas.
Sure. Well, on that agenda, they had given information at the top for people who either don't speak English or don't speak it as a first language. How they could reach out, how they can get interpretation. It was written in several different languages that were common to the community. And I thought it was interesting because, my time, I've only been on council for a year, but, there's been several times where folks have come in and speak to us about important issues, from demolitions and, other property issues where there may have been a little bit of a language barrier, and I thought maybe they would have been helpful. They may not have been aware. That's no reflection on the staff or anything. They may not have brought that up. They needed it because staff's made it very clear to me that these services are available. They just need to know in advance and they can make arrangements. So maybe by having some kind of statement on the actual agenda, it would make people aware that this is available to them.
Thank you. And so based on that, based on that feedback and idea sharing, we had talked about what that could look like for Bangor, because I think that the theme of tonight is, if it exists, put it in writing, right? And if we already have these language and physical assistance accommodations available, if there are ways that we can just ensure that everyone who might need these accommodations know where to find them, know how to receive them, at least we have we know that we've done the due diligence of making it as obvious as possible. And so on our agenda today, we have it in writing at the very top in English. And a lot of this too also has to do with when the doors are going to be open, because even if it's not a language or physical access, even knowing where to go, and having that comfort and peace of knowing, like, I'm showing up at the right time at the right place, and I know I'm going to go to city council, because that is scary for a lot of folks too, to bring their feedback directly to the council. Giving as much information as possible, we thought would be really helpful. And so this is an example on the first page of our agenda. And I guess the discussion that I'd like to have, or the decision, is this something that we think would be something that we would want to see on all city agendas. Right now, it currently is not. Right now, we just have it as an example on ours, but if we were to look for making a recommendation to council of how we could ensure there's as much access as possible and those accommodations are easy to find, this might be the recommendation that we go for. Again, this is a draft. If there's feedback, if there are suggestions, recommendations, now is the time to discuss those, but this is what we had put together. And then Courtney, I know that you have the website up as well. I don't know if there's anything additional that you would want to show us that might make this
Not pertaining to that.
not pertaining. You're just getting ready for the next thing. Okay. Thoughts?
Michael, is there any indication that the council has informed people about language accessibility?
I mean, I don't think it's within the purview of the council, so we haven't put anything out there to them, but my understanding though that, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's available. They just need to let staff know. And it's not a bad idea to just let people know that it's available so they could reach out to staff and make those arrangements.
If I may.
Yes, please.
Yeah, we don't have like a formal service. Honestly, I think in the 4.5 years I've been here, I think only twice have we needed or someone could have clearly used translation services, but we have connected with like the Multicultural Center, and we also have some staff that would be available to volunteer to actually translate as well. So certainly, if there's a need out there, and perhaps it's not getting to us because of like the barriers that exist, I think that you know, making it clear that this is available and we will seek solutions to make sure that our meetings are accessible for a number of different ways, whether that's language or physical assistance requirements or anything like that. We want to hear from those folks so that we can problem solve that and make sure that our meetings are accessible as possible.
Well, there's one suggestion. So if we do this, I would recommend we make sure we set expectations, because it does take time to set up, make those connections. You know, that way people think it's, you know, like a hotline that it's just going to go. Yeah.
And I will say that in the piece that the example that you provided, counselor, from Chapel Hill, it says, you know, if you need language assistance, call this number. So I called it just to see like what was on the other line. And they went through, you know, if you needed this language and then every language that was available, you would choose. And it did say, you know, leave your information and we'll get back to you, because that also, even with a service that is able to act as a hotline, there still isn't, a lot of cities still don't have the bandwidth to say, we're going to get on this right away. You're going to talk to a live person. We're going to answer all of your needs. So that being said, I do think, and forgive me, Courtney, I think at one point, and maybe I'm misremembering this, did we say like, you know, for language and physical assistance requests, please call Grace Innes, you know, was it like within, you know, 48 hours of a meeting? I feel like there was a timestamp that we had put on there that, and maybe I'm misremembering that or imagining that.
I remember we chatted about that, and I think we landed on that as soon as possible, just to see like if there was interest without kind of creating like a hard cutoff, like, because oftentimes our meetings are on Mondays, so to say 48 hours.
True.
Could create confusion.
True.
So as soon as possible is like, obviously if a request came in the same day, it may prove difficult, but it also depends on like what their request is. It may be something that we certainly can accommodate for that evening. So you know, I think that's something that may need to be revisited. Like if we were flooded with all sorts of requests, for example, we might need to actually lengthen the amount of time that we need to prepare. But in the meantime, I think from a staff perspective, as soon as possible for now is creates flexibility, but without having like those hard and fast sort of cutoffs.
Thank you.
Do you know if there's anything on the city website addressing this issue?
So the city, sorry, I just realized talk about accessibility, but We do have a webpage dedicated to accommodation requests. And actually that's required by law. And this is why the request that's listed on the agenda lists Grace Innes, because she is our ADA coordinator. She's received training in that area. And her and I work closely together because both of us, we have some familiarity with that subject, and also the city manager's office has a lot of connections related to services within the community that could help us assist with providing those services.
Thank you. Forgive me, my leadership skills are failing tonight, and I keep forgetting to open it up for comment before each new topic. I apologize. I do see a hand raised that I would like to give an opportunity to speak, please.
Good evening, committee.
Well,
hi, sorry, I'm apparently on the wrong email account for myself, but my name is Jamie Beck. I am a resident of Bangor. Forgive me if I missed this part of this conversation, but has there been any conversation around the fact that the notice to alert people to ask for language services is only provided in English?
Thank you very much.
The other part of that is if people need sign language interpretation for real time within council chambers, is that something that has been considered?
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, Jamie. I really appreciate that feedback. That is not, you did not miss that piece of the conversation. I think that we, this is a very bare bones entry level start to what that could be. That is great feedback to have. I think that we would have to address, what are the most commonly needed languages, how to present that. And then if there are, my question is, and I don't even know if there's an answer, but say that someone did recognize this in their, native language, made the phone call. I would hate for them to reach someone who's not able to assist them in that language. Thus, lending itself to even more confusion. I don't know what the solution for that would be.
I just first want to acknowledge that this is a sensitive subject, and nothing that I say on behalf of staff is ever meant to be taken in a way that anything other than we do our best, and we want to be able to address people's barriers. But with that said, a lot of it comes down to need within our area. So there are certainly folks in our area that speak different languages. And for the most part, those folks have connections built in. For example, Catholic Charities for a long time played a very important role in creating connections for language. And so the immigrant populations that came in had those connections that helped. Multicultural Center played a big role in that. So for the most part, when we have folks coming in or calling us, they already have a translator or somebody that at least speaks English well enough in order to communicate. And certainly, I've never heard of an interaction either through phone or in person from somebody that could not speak English at all and that we were unable to help as a result.
Okay.
And again, only a couple of instances where I think us actually getting a translator immediately would have been very helpful to the individual we were trying to help.
Yeah.
But in a lot of cases too, it's also a learning opportunity. So we did have a gentleman that came to council meeting that English was not his first language, but he actually expressed to the city manager's office after that meeting that he appreciated patience and that he was trying to practice his English skills. He didn't want a translator. So long as we were patient enough to hear him out, he could certainly get his intent across to us. And so we are trying to be sensitive to that in all the different sides, I guess. But certainly, I think if there's an unmet need out there, we don't want to hear about that, so we can determine like the best way to fill that need and to partner with others that may be able to. The same thing with ASL, the American Sign Language. We've never received a request for interpretation services. The only person I'm aware of that came in, again, they came with somebody that were able to translate for them. But certainly, I'm personally aware of a couple of people that do speak fluent ASL, and I'm sure with some notice, we could probably make some arrangements. We also do have hearing devices, especially in this room. You heard this podium actually amplifies within the room. Our goal is to do that at this table as well. And so we do have hearing assistance devices for anybody that needs them. That way they don't have to bring in their own device, pull up YouTube and have a lag or anything like that. We can assist folks in real time. So yeah, I guess I'll stop there.
Thank you. Thanks for that update. That's a great question. It's great to think about what our options.
So I have a question
Go
then.
ahead.
Is there a need for our committee to do anything?
That's also the theme for tonight.
And if there is a need, what would we do?
So I think that and this is just my own opinion, right? I think that our committee exists to think about the people who aren't being thought about. It's kind of like when you enter a room and you introduce yourself and you use your pronouns. That might not be important to you, but if it is important to someone in the room, they're going to feel seen and they're going to feel safe with you. And I think that even if there's not anyone that needs physical assistance or language assistance, knowing that the city of Bangor on every single agenda says like, hey, we want you to come to our meetings. And if it's a barrier because you use an accessible device or because you don't speak English, we're going to help you with that. And so I think that has always been my interpretation of this committee, whether or not that's the end goal or something that we all agree to. This is my personal, very not in chair mode opinion, that doing whatever we can to make people feel seen, even if they don't even know they want it, or if there isn't, they're not comfortable asking, is something that we should always be on the lookout for. I don't know if that's an answer. That's
No, it is.
opinion.
It is.
Yeah. I'm just thinking about in terms of like what Jamie said, how we can make this so just that intro statement is more accessible, because I'm thinking about just like you mentioned earlier, pragmatism. Would we put that paragraph in like maybe the 4 most common non-English languages spoken in the Bangor area? Or would that just be like taking up too much space? Like I'm not opposed to it, but I'm thinking in terms of like, what would that look like?
I think too, for pragmatic sake, first of all, that is the question, like how much of a need is there for people to look at an agenda and really not even understand like 4 language assistance, those words in this, this country's language, right? That might be something that that is a question that I'd be interested in hearing, but also, I don't know if you guys have ever been at the doctor's office and it says like, for assistance, and it literally says it in every language on the side, and then you can just take a screenshot. I'm thinking how many people, nobody's looking at this, like very few people are actually looking at this on paper, right? It's typically they go to the agenda online. So do we say just in the top 4 languages for assistance, click here, and then it can bring like how hard it could just in their language just say call Grace. I don't know. I don't know. Like, are there options?
That's a really good idea.
And that might be something that, again, just given our time, like this is something that I think we can dig into, maybe do research this next month about like what are other cities doing? What are our options? And I feel so bad, Courtney, because this website is beautiful and I want you to have an opportunity to talk about it. And we always run out of time and I apologize. But do you feel like it would be possible if we were to identify the actual correct language, or rather the actual correct, the language, like what the words that we want to say, that we could put those on the webpage, right? That people could either click on the link.
Yeah, so that would be like on here, for example, like I got to hear from the Agenda Center.
Yeah.
So, like this has all the different committees and you can see, their agendas, and when you click it, it also shows like the minutes and the media. And so when I clicked on tonight's agenda, this came up, so I definitely think we could have like embedded links that maybe take them to a different page with more information that may be pertinent or relevant, and in their language as
That's
at
true.
least the
Yeah.
starting point.
And
So,
it could
yeah.
just be like a landing page that just has the paragraph in, you know,
Oh, yeah,
most native
absolutely.
languages that just say like, you know, if you need assistance,
Yeah,
it would still be, I'm assuming, called Grace, right?
yeah, and in fact, I think that is quite likely. So like under your government, for example, like meeting participation page has like, you know, a lot of information that's available to encourage participation. And so certainly we could do something with this that maybe there's you know, a subpage that has pertinent information to attend meetings and everything
yeah.
in the different languages. And with also like an invitation, like if you'd like to attend a meeting and need translation services, this is how you do it. And that is in their language.
That makes sense.
Or at least the most popular languages in our area and things like that.
That sounds like a good way to address.
Yeah. I do think in terms of like other things that communities are doing, I think what might be helpful for staff actually from this committee too would be maybe like connecting with the Multicultural Center and other organizations, the universities, just to see if there's a feel for what we do believe the most important or prevalent languages are in our area.
Yeah.
We do that on our side as part of Title VI requirements for various entities like the Community Connector. And it is, the response is usually pretty minimal, but I am well aware that you know, the Multicultural Center has made known that like Spanish and French, for example, would be really helpful. And then it kind of drops off from there, but they are often aware of like populations of people in our area that would find that helpful. So just gathering sort of some basic level data around what the committee believes those languages should be would be really helpful.
That's a great idea. That's a great idea. So I think for next steps, and I would recommend that we, I'm happy to send an email to the Multicultural Center and see if they have recommendations on language, and then we can revisit like what that could look like on the actual website, what we think is actually important to put on there.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Great.
Wonderful. In the essence of time, is there something quickly that you'd want to show us about the webpage, or?
Not necessarily show you, I think I sent out a link.
Yes, you did.
It is on BangorMaine.gov's website. There is a page for this committee that has some basic information. I just encourage folks to take a look at that and share feedback that you may have related to that.
Thank you. It looks beautiful, and I really appreciate all the hard work that's gone into making this. It's been a big change, and it's really lovely. And yet that you didn't see that, Courtney sent out a number of different updates to our committee after the last meeting that we had at the end of August. That was really helpful, and you can find all of the link to review there. All right. Any other questions, needs, concerns before we adjourn for the evening? I'm gonna ask for a motion for once, instead of just asking for the vote.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Second, all right. Gabrielle?
Thank you.
No, do you vote?
Oh, yes, yeah,
What do you-
I'm sorry, my brain's toast.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, Ray?
Yeah.
Mark?
Yes.
And Miss Katie is a yes as well. Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate your time this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.